Your competitive advantage is your experiences, what you've done, because that's what it's going to help you connect with other people. And that's everyone's competitive advantage, is like our own unique, who we are as people. That's why people want to work with us.
I think as AI continues to grow, it's going to be about brand. And the brand is going to be related to, do you trust that brand and are they delivering value?
This whole idea of like the great stay, or like job hugging, I've heard it called, where people are like holding on to their jobs. So because people have that perception that the job market is more challenging.
So we're constantly going through that shift of what can an AI do? How far can it go? And then what resource do we need? So I think the resource planning, workforce planning, is what I'm hearing a lot about, is evolving, because it's going to include full resources. It's not just human capital.
Joel Lalgee and Marcus Sawyerr welcome you to AI and Recruiting, the show where they break down how AI is transforming hiring, leadership, and the future of work. Expect real talk, smart tools, and bold conversations with the people shaping what's next. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the AI in Recruiting podcast. I am your co-host, Joel Lalgee, along with my other co-host, or the other co-host, Marcus Sawyerr. Marcus, welcome. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Joel, as always. Looking forward to the discussion and hearing what you've been up to. How are things?
Things are great. We're about to hit Labor Day. Kids are back in school here in the Midwest, which has been great. So we just had my daughter's first day back, and then her first official week is next week. So kids back in school all around, which means schedules are normalizing. It looks like people are more optimistic as well, which is great. What about you? You've been out of town. What have you been up to?
Yeah, a bit of travel, not too far. So I was down in San Diego for a few days, meeting some customers and connections and network, and just having conversations around the industry. So that was pretty cool. I'll be back there as well, spending more time just out and about, meeting the people that we've been helping and supporting. And yeah, just really spending the majority of the time with human connections. I was in the lab for a while, building out new products and new services with the team, and now they're starting to drive that. So excited to share the next wave of AI agents.
So when you meet with people in San Diego, what are the types of businesses you've been meeting with? Who are those connections?
Yeah, so we work with a couple of companies that are obviously, I say obviously, but in the recruiting space, and they have different roles and remits. So a couple of CEOs, one in particular that is focused on healthcare and pharma, and then a couple of other folks that have been focused on aerospace and engineering, and some MSPs as well, and also freelance network. So it's just been interesting to get the take in terms of how people are feeling about AI generally at large across different markets. And yeah, I think that there's been an evolution in terms of how people are using AI and what they think it can do.
Yeah, I heard from a conversation I had today with an HR leader who's led HR at several large organizations. Her words were, either you're going to embrace AI or you're going to get steamrolled by AI, which I thought was great. But I'd be curious to kind of know, what's that shift you've been seeing, and what's that overarching shift that you've seen with clients you're working with, and how people are kind of changing their view on AI.
Everybody is using ChatGPT or something similar. Like, I say everybody, I mean in the recruiting space at large, they've tried it, right? And somebody had said the other day, many people haven't tried it and they haven't used it, and they're like, I'm just trying to think, who are those people?
Everyone's used it.
Yeah, everyone's tried it. It's like trying Google. Now there's some challenges that are starting to arise, especially within my network, around leveraging AI and candidate misrepresentation. It's just starting to happen on both sides. One on the candidate side, saying, hey, I'm world-class XYZ developer, and you have a resume that says that, but then the candidate doesn't really fit that. So that hits the recruiter. But then on the flip side, you've got the recruiters internally with these companies that are now dressing up the candidates. And especially in contract work, you can get the resume through. But once the resume gets through, doesn't mean that they're the right candidate. And so then the clients are getting some pushback. So there's an erosion of trust. And the leaders in these businesses that I'm speaking to, they're aware of what their teams are doing. And they're like in two minds. They're like, well, I want them to use AI because it's helping them in some regard act a little bit faster. But they're losing that craft.
Yeah.
And what they can see happening is they're going to lose the trust with the hiring manager. And if you lose the trust with the hiring manager, ultimately you're going to lose revenue as time goes on. And so they're kind of thinking about it like a few steps ahead. So that's like one main narrative. I don't know if you've heard much around that as far as like resumes and also dressing up candidates. Like, what's your network saying to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the consensus, right? You're getting thousands of resumes for some of these open jobs, particularly if it's a remote job, right? You're going to get 1,000 resumes and they all look the same because people are following that process of, hey, let's take this job description, plug it into AI, plug it into ChatGPT, whatever you're using, and then create a resume off the back of that. So you end up with a lot of very similar looking documentation. You know, I see this on, you know, not to get too far away from it, but I see it on LinkedIn as well with content where you see a lot of similar content. My wife was saying the other day that on her social media and even in some of her emails that she's receiving a lot of emails, she's seeing a lot of stuff that just sounds the same. I think the takeaway is people are going to do whatever is easiest.
Yeah.
And I think that's easiest, right? Take a job description, make me a resume. Then the question for candidates is, well, how do I stand out? Well, maybe part of the way that you stand out is to not completely take yourself out of that loop of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, it's an arms race, right? On both sides. So on the candidate side and then on the client side. So whether you're a direct client or you're a recruiter or supporting a client. And I had a similar scenario with somebody that I was speaking to. They had received an email and it was written in like a storyboard format. And it was saying, hey, imagine that you get into work today and your boss is thinking, where's all my marketing material? How would you handle it? It's 8 a.m. So they create this whole story and sent this email, but they had the wrong companies in. They had their old company in there. And so I've been talking about this and thinking about it a lot. Precision is key.
Yeah.
And we're spending a lot more time on that, like the quality. So I think that we're moving from an area of mass AI, right? Like, let's get out as many jobs as we can, as many candidates. Let's start spamming, right? Like, it's like AI spam.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like when emails were created and then there was kind of like mass email creation, just spam, spam, spam. But that's happening even more now. I think people get allergic to that.
Yeah.
So what they're looking for is more precision. And what we're working with our clients on is how can we help you have more intelligent conversations? So instead of AI, human intelligence, right? It's not about artificial intelligence. It's about amplifying human intelligence. And so we've been trying to really focus on understanding the signals. Like, is someone hiring for a particular role? Why are they hiring? What has sparked that? Who are the hiring managers that are associated to this? So really getting down to that precision so you can have more intelligent conversations, both with your clients and your candidates.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that's, I think you talked about it before as well with like context, right? It's like, do you have that context? I love that precision word though, and like having that precision and, you know, having, it's almost like being relevant to people, knowing why you're reaching out to them, using the tech for that versus, I mean, it reminds me really of when like sequencing came out with emails, like when that was like this amazing thing where you could just press a button and suddenly you could have, you know, 4 or 5 touch points in 2 weeks and everybody uses it. But obviously that only works if you're the only person with it. But now everybody has access to it. So I was talking to someone today and they were saying within kind of go to market motions where, you know, it's really trying to stay ahead of what everybody else is doing. And how do you stay ahead of what everyone else is doing? So it's a challenge, though. It's a challenge to be able to do that. What's some advice that you have for like how you need to change your thinking in order to stay precise with how you're using AI?
So I'll give a couple of use cases we've been working more recently with some exec search firms. And one of the things that they're trying to do is they're trying to predict before the hires actually happen, because when the jobs go up, sometimes it's too late.
Yeah.
And so there are some indications around that. And it's about staying on top of what those indicators are. So maybe this organization is about to embark on new research for a particular drug. As they do that, they're going to need a team to help to support that. So we've been really focused on providing the right information at the right point in time with the right context. So then it's less about mass and more about control and precision. You'll actually end up sending less messages, but you've got a higher chance of closing those out. And that then will evolve your brand. And I think the other thing we've been spending a lot of time is like delivering value to your network. And we always talk about this as well. Like, how can you tell your network what's going on and people that you're actually trying to sell to? And maybe they don't have something for you now, but I do this at the moment with the newsletter, right? Like, we'll write a weekly newsletter on everything that's going on. Our newsletter subscribers have been growing significantly around AI. Obviously, we're doing this on the podcast. And it's not always about us selling our product, but it's more giving people an indication and thought leadership. How are you a thought leader in your space? Because I think as AI continues to grow, it's going to be about brand. And the brand is going to be related to, do you trust that brand and are they delivering value? If, let's just say AI is electricity, okay? It's not about who's got the electricity. It's about what is the appliance and the application of it, and how are you using it in the context of that particular environment to support that need, right? Are you creating refrigerators? What are you doing with it?
It's huge. And I think this whole idea around trust, not whole idea, but the conversation around trust it's so key. And I think you talked about this in the past as well with like, your brand should create that trust. It's like, how do you do that? How do you scale that? And then how do you implement AI into that? It's huge. And I think that's still something that a lot of people are trying to work out and trying to figure out within, with having the pressures that they have. So if you're in sales, obviously you have the pressure of a quota and you got to deliver revenue. And so I think that's what kind of leads to this whole mass spam and like just running on numbers. Like, hey, if I just get a 1% response rate, but it's getting harder and harder. I'm sure you experience this, as do I, with just all the messages you get. And then you have to think, okay, well, why do I answer a message? It's like two things. Either I have a problem and you're addressing that problem and you just happen to get me at the right time, or I know you. And so both of those things just become so huge. What do you think in terms of using AI with brand and content? Like, have you been seeing that come up a lot with like people using AI for things like content? And like, how do you advise people when it comes to that? Curious.
Yeah, I think everyone's using it, but not very well.
Yeah.
Like, so there are some of these kind of snake oil AI salespeople. Here's the prompt of the day. Get this prompt, 5 prompt frameworks, blah, blah, like that stuff. That sells, right? But like, it's like, okay, cool. But how is this helping me with my challenge?
Yeah.
And so then you've got that. And then you've got the other end of like, oh my God, ChatGPT is so great. I can create content from it. You can kind of, but what's your idea? What's your point of view? And you talk about point of view a lot. And I think it comes to, and I was thinking about this kind of framework as like a control mode and defining the outcome. So there's a 6-step framework that I created, which is about you defining the outcome that you want first. So it goes back to like the whole point of like, what's the problem you're trying to solve, but defining the outcome, like what are you trying to get done? Here's a way that you could use AI. You can capture what you're trying to get done, your ideas, by just using voice, just talking to your phone. Okay. So now this is how I write a lot of my newsletters. So you're talking to your phone, you've got this voice note in there. Then you take that, you put it into AI and you say, you stress test it. You say, what are the pros and cons of this idea or how I'm trying to do it? So you could either do that if you want to create a piece of content, or you do it if you just want to have a thought partner and you want to create a strategy that's internal. Then you say, review it like a critic, make this better. So for me, it's always about refining it. And then once you have that outcome, then you can institutionalize it and start to scale your content. And I think what some people have done with AI is that they might have done pretty well where they've been using it. It's not the one and done. They've kind of created their voice, the way that they operate. They're aware of it and they trust it. But I think that content for content's sake is challenges. Like, what's the value you're trying to deliver? Who are you trying to deliver it to? Why are you talking about? Why should anybody care? And that's the same reason when you outreach to somebody for an opportunity. What do you think? Because you're kind of spending a lot more time with content at large. How is your process evolved with AI?
I think coming up with like a skeleton, right? So like almost like the bones of content has been helpful. And then also coming up with like more schedules and timing. So basically just a framework to stay consistent
Mm-hmm.
has been helpful. So, when I'm coaching people, it's one of the things I say, especially when you're beginning with content, is to think about what am I going to post each day? Because you're just more likely to post if you know what you're going to talk about on that given day. Where I've been using AI a lot is to just polish things up. So if I want to if I want things to sound more professional, and so I've been doing this a lot with emails recently as well. If I go to send an email, just using AI to touch things up. But again, to your point, I think the danger and what people do, and again, I have a lot of content. I've become an expert with creating content, so I don't necessarily need to use it a lot to like come up with those ideas. Just to kind of give me, there are those times when I'm uninspired. So being smart with when I use AI, I very much remain in the loop of it. And I think that's what you're saying as well, where the tendency is for people to just take the easy path and just to go, all right, I'm just going to have it do everything for me. The problem is with that is then you just lose your competitive advantage, which is always yourself. Your competitive advantage is your experiences, what you've done, because that's what it's going to help you connect with other people. And that's everyone's competitive advantage is like our own unique who we are as people. That's why people want to work with us, what you've done in the past. And I think as soon as we lose that and you default to, hey, I'm going to use technology to do everything for me because it's easier. That's, I think, where you can lose. But it's surprising how many people are doing that. And so like, it's like, what is a point of view? Well, your point of view is why you think the things you do based on experiences, based on what you've seen, based on just what you think. And I don't think we want to lose that. But obviously in business, people want to be efficient and they want to do the easy thing. So,
Well, I think what we're talking about is agency. And if you think about the world that we operate in and have done for years, and the reasons why companies hire a recruitment agency is to provide agency for an individual, whether that's a candidate
yep.
or the client, if depending on who you're working for. So if you provide agency, that means as a service, you provide agency as a service. That means you have to provide judgment as a service. And so your opinion and your perspective matters in the end.
Yep.
How you scale that opinion and perspective is evolving. There's an opportunity to do that, right? Like you can put your point of view in an AI and that could be your point of view, right? And you've kind of trained that model to be who you are and think like you. So people are like, oh, what bias does the AI have with the algorithm when you're doing matching? It's like, well, how do you want it to match? Do you want it to screen for credentials? Do you want to screen for location? Or if you want to screen for culture, what's your definition of culture? So I think going back to the building blocks of like, again, what are you trying to do? But also, what are your definitions of the input? So how do you define the input to get the output? And the input might be, I want to screen candidates in this particular type of way, or I'm looking, and this is what we're doing at the moment with something that we're launching. I want to look for certain types of companies in this particular area and location because I have a meeting here next Friday. And I want to make sure that not only am I connecting with the executives, but I'm connecting with the hiring managers and I understand who they are. And also I have a current account that I want to connect with. That's your context. And if you want to do that over and over again, you can scale it to your point, which you'd said was about the consistency. So another way to break in consistency is to bake it into your workflow. So there's consistency of like, okay, this is something I'm going to do each week, like the newsletter. So I have to go out and do that each week. But then there's a workflow of like, when does this show up? Is this at 8 a.m. on Monday? Is this at 6 p.m. on a Thursday? Because that's when I want to either receive or see these roles. And that's where I think the agents, the AI agents now can help you with your agency by then delivering something that you want at the right point in the right kind of place at the right time. But you have modeled it. You've decided what the input is. Then the other thing is the other thing that people are going to miss. You have to update that.
Yeah.
As the market moves, as things change, things evolve.
Exactly.
You've got to maintain and update it.
Yeah, and I look, that's I think the same with. I mean, it's definitely the same with content, which I've talked about before, right? It's like consistency, but it's consistently getting better. So it's the same with a lot of these areas of business, whether it's sales. Like I just don't think the sales playbook from 2015 does not work in 2025, and the 2020 playbook doesn't work. It's constantly evolving, so you almost have to have consistency in the activities that you're doing, but then you also have to be agile enough to look at, okay, this isn't working anymore, and now I need to change it. So you kind of got to consistently be changing as well. And I think that's why you can use AI to, like what you said, where in that framework, one of the things you're doing is like, what are the limitations here? What are the things that are working? What are the things that aren't? And using AI as like a coach to help you, or to just give you that creative edge at times where you go, okay, hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think? And it's going to be able to give you that edge and go, okay, maybe you need to tailor this differently. So
I think the other thing as well is the context of the point in time is really important. So if you ask an AI for an output and you did, let's say 8-9 months ago, maybe actually a little bit longer than that, it was trained up to 2023.
Yeah.
And that was like when it started. It's funny, like now it's like up to date. But the large language models are trained on a big corpus of historical data. And what does that mean? That means that there's definitely inherent kind of biases based on what happened historically. And what you're asking the AI to do every time you ask it a question is you're secretly, and you don't realize it sometimes, asking the AI to predict the future for you. Because you want to know, based on the output that it provides you, how can you do something to perform better in the future, not previously? If you're creating something new, if you're creating content or you're doing an output, if you want to just know something like a fact check, hey, what happened in this particular era of human existence? It's got some of that information there as well. Bearing that in mind, that you're asking it to predict a future outcome, one of the prompts that I use, I think it's been fairly useful, is like, hey, thanks for that answer, but based on everything that's happening right now and what you see happening in the future, is this still the right way to create this strategy? If so, tell me why. If not, tell me why as well. You're pushing the AI to critically think through the outcomes. And we're talking about text-based models here. If you can continuously do that, you're going to learn more information as you go along by tweaking and refining the AI. If you get static information, you're just going to know what everybody knew historically. And so it should challenge your thinking, and you should challenge the AI's thinking. And that's why humans like to connect with each other, because we have a conversation and we don't always have to agree 100% on something, and you see a different perspective. Well, that's historically how it should have been.
Man, that's crazy. It's just, I wonder how many people though are spending that time to dig deep like that as well. Because again, it's I think about with the content and those 5 prompts to put in, and then people are just like prompting once and then not going further and further. But I think you had said too, it's almost like with an intern, like you wouldn't just say with an intern, like, hey, go do this. Yeah, it's like you're having to train and having to kind of continuously put inputs in, but that takes work and it takes time as well. And, I just wonder how many people are actually putting that time in to do that.
Once you've got it, it's scalable. So that's what the agents are. So once you understand how to query it and what you're asking it to do, and I go back to the OTT framework, you've got an objective. This is the job that I would like you to do. You've got the task. This is how I want you to do it. And then you've got the tools. With that OTT, you put something in, right? Like, I want you to generate proposals for me. That's your job. We do this today. The task, how are you going to do it? I want you to take the context of my website, my information, and my transcript conversation. And then I want you to deliver that. Here are the tools. It's my transcript, it's current information, and it's my tone. You get an output. Once you've got that output, you check it and you see, is that any good? Okay. And then you do it again and you do it again. So you only do that first thing, like you set it up once, but you're refining it and iterating it constantly. And then once you're happy with it, you can just let it run. We have an AI executive assistant that transcribes all of our calls, so everyone has transcription. But at the end of each call, it actually comes up with an executive summary, and then all the tasks of who's doing what and what was said yesterday, and then how we follow up. So if I'm not in the office and our daily call happens, I can go back in and just see, I get an alert, buddy, we've just done the call. This is who's doing what. This is what they said yesterday, and this is how it works. And so it's like, but we know the framework of what we're looking to get done. And again, it goes to like, what you're trying to achieve and what problem are you trying to solve. So you can program the AIs to do what you expect. So you have to have a point of view and some kind of hypotheses that you're working towards to start with, to put a stake in the ground. Or if you don't have one, you're just kind of shooting in the dark.
When you're working with different clients, or you're working with different prospects, how often are you seeing that is a struggle for people? Like, what advice do you have for people, like in terms of trying to find out what those problems are?
The customers that I work with typically are smaller, mid-sized staffing and recruiting firms that need to do one or two things. They either need more clients or they need more candidates that are highly qualified, so that are relevant, interested, and verified. So they know what the problem is. And so we don't talk to them about like using AI and AI agents. We talk about delivering on that problem. Can we deliver you your ICPs? Can we deliver your ideal client profile or your ideal candidate profiles? And so they say, hey, look, I'm looking for these types of positions. I'm looking for heads of regulatory and clinical affairs in these 4 or 5 locations. What we do is we program the agents for them to deliver that for them. So we don't expect them to do it because we're not delivering them a tool, we're delivering them a solution. And the outcome is, here you go. Now, what we're doing more recently is all of that learning that we've had, we're scaling that into a product so you can go and do it yourself. So our models understand what you're looking for and it interprets what you think. You could put one word in and it will interpret and understand and clarify with you. So we've started to put guardrails in our processes so it can say, hey, this is what I think you mean, but do you really mean this? No, actually, I mean this. So it's prompting with you. And as it does that, it'll give you your output and then it starts to learn with you. So it's really evolving with that. And I think there's 8 or 9 agents that we have in our platform that are doing that all at once.
Yeah, I love it. What have you seen in terms of the need right now? Is it old business development? Is it candidates? Like what are you kind of seeing, or it depends what market people are in?
So business development has been a key area, and it has really been around precision to see movements that are going on in the market. So if you know something that not everybody else knows, and that's what we're really helping our clients with, whether that's jobs, whether it's articles, whether it's information around who the hiring managers are, you've got a better chance of being able to reach out to them in a personal way, or you've got a current account that you want to get deeper into. So we're providing those precision insights at scale. It has been on the business development side for the smaller mid-sized firms. On the larger firms that have already got requisitions, it's always on the candidate side because they have these ever-standing clients. It's like, how do I deliver and screen candidates at scale? So screening has been a key element, obviously sourcing, but actually just screening the inbounds in a way that is unbiased and in a way that is going to help them basically do the screening for culture that they would do as a recruiter later down the line. So we just say, okay, look, this is how we order it, this is how you stack rank it. And so it's a lot of matching at the moment where our AI agents are providing value to our customers. What are you seeing in the market when it comes to recruiting specific, really just what the market's saying to you? I know that you're obviously doing some exec search as well. And so, yeah, talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I think there's a lot of people right now that aren't necessarily, I think people who have jobs are not as open to new positions. I know recently I've been seeing a lot of even just from conversations and content, there's this whole idea of like the great stay, or like job hugging, I've heard it called, where people are like holding on to their jobs. So because people have that perception that the job market is more challenging, and they still have that perception like, hey, there's not, it's not always this like idea of like a secure job, for example. It's actually harder to recruit people like, hey, I don't want to take a risk here. I don't want to be like the, is it like last in, first out type idea, where if you're the latest hire, somehow you're going to get fired quicker or laid off quicker if there's layoffs. So that's actually creating, it's hard if you're looking for a really specific skill set, or you're looking at people who have applied and maybe you're not finding, that right type of skill set, or the right technical skills that you're looking for. when you're going out and finding quote unquote passive candidates, it's becoming a lot more challenging. So it's like you have those two problems, right? Lots of candidates inbound, but you're also finding then a lot of these AI generated resumes that we talked about. So a lot of volume to go through, a lot of the same looking resumes. How do I screen those people? And then if you don't find what you're looking for, because it seems like people are getting more picky, then you're having to go out and find, candidates who aren't active. But people who aren't active are harder to recruit because they're just not wanting to take a risk. It's almost like a similar problem to 2021, but almost like an opposite scenario where in 2021, obviously you couldn't find an applicant. No one was applying the job, so you had to go out and find people, and people were really open. So you had people with lots of opportunities. So it's kind of just like completely flipped on its head. So that's what I'm seeing. And then I think from a leadership perspective, still just so much pressure on leaders to come up with, how are we using AI? How are we approaching problems with AI? And if you're not thinking about it, you got tons and tons of pressure. So I think, that's why people are attending AI sessions. That's why people are tuned in to what's going on and really looking for answers to solutions. So yeah, I feel like that's going to be like that for the next 18, 24 months is what I'm predicting job market wise. I'd be curious to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think it always depends on the context of the role. So
yeah.
I think executive search is different from healthcare, travel nurse recruiting. They're still in high demand and it's fast paced because it's typically contracting. I've heard about the kind of first in, first out, but I do think that as there's an evolution in the market and a great restructuring happens, and it's happening, companies are looking for a different set of skills. They're trying to figure out what that is. So there's a lot of change management going on at the moment, which is what I'm hearing. So it's like, hey, can we do this with the current folks that we have? How do we transform and help these folks along the journey in some scenarios? Or can an AI do that job? So people are now starting to break down the job descriptions internally and say, and we actually are doing this ourselves. We've created a table where we look at all of the needs that we have, all of the tasks, and every single task that we need to get done, from building out our communities newsletter all the way to selling the deal, all the way to building out a product. What tasks could we do ourselves and what tasks could you do with an agent? And so we've actually split it up into two kind of areas where it's like autonomous and co-pilot, because there are some tasks like which we do, like coding, where we would need a co-pilot to do that, but we think that we're using AI for that as well. And there are some tasks where you start to scale and you automate fully, which is like list building. That's a fully AI agent. And then we bring that into play and we actually give access to our customers to use the stuff that we have that's fully autonomous. So we're constantly going through that shift of what can an AI do? How far can it go? And then what resource do we need? So I think the resource planning, workforce planning, is what I'm hearing a lot about, is evolving, because it's going to include full resources. It's not just human capital. Joel, it's always a pleasure. I think we're getting to the tail end now, right? Anything else that you want to mention?
Yeah, I just want to mention, it looks like your community is growing, your newsletter community. What do we have to now?
I think as of today, we're at 39,000. So
it's crazy, man. It's crazy. So people can get involved in the newsletter, and anything else going on in that regard as well?
Because our newsletter has been growing so much, we've actually been asked by a few of our close customers, network, but also people just following us, are there ways to get involved even more? And so we're creating a couple of programs, and we'll make some announcements within the next couple of weeks. But if anybody's interested in learning more about AI, or even using AI products to build ideal candidate profiles and ideal client profiles, even more so. So if you're a small business, we're starting to work with them in a closed environment. So we're doing a lot more community, and then there's going to be also a lot more in person as well. There's a couple of roadshows coming out. So we'd love to hear what cities you're in and where we should start to bring some of the AI knowledge that we have across the US in particular. So yeah, watch this space, and looking forward to connecting with people in person and more online.
I love it. I know you traveling anywhere in the near future as well.
Yeah, I'll be in Dallas in the next few weeks. I'll be down there for CWS and also SIA, and then got some client meetings there. So if anyone's in Dallas, reach out. And yeah, how about you?
Next thing I got is in Nashville with RecFest, and that's it. That should be it
Great.
for this year. Yeah, so excited about that.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I've still got to come to your neck of the woods at some point, so I'm going to get that on
Midwest.
Yeah, Midwest. Yeah, we'll see
Right.
see what's going on down there. But look, everyone, thank you so much for spending your time to listen to this. If you need anything more when it comes down to AI in recruiting, we are here to support and talk. Joel is somebody that you should spend a lot of time following if you have not, and you're thinking about growing your social presence or just learning about how to have a consistent brand, because he's been doing that for many, many years. Always learn a lot when I speak to Joel. So yeah, thanks for spending your time as well.
We'll be back next week with another episode, so stay tuned and feel free to reach out to either of us. We'll see you guys.
Cheers.
If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in your network, your team, your boss, or that recruiter still stuck in 2015. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss what's next in hiring and AI. Until next time.